Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Fox, and today I wanted to bring you a brand new PvP assault rifle build. This build is designed to output quite a substantial amount of damage whilst healing your team very frequently without any need for yellow skill tier pieces on your build or any sort of healing pieces. And what it also does is directly counter status builds. I was using this build earlier in the DZ and I've got some good footage there as well, so I will showcase that in a separate video if there is some interest in it. But what I'm going to do today is showcase this in conflict, just because it's a bit easier and a bit more controlled, so I can demonstrate how it works a bit more effectively without loads of chatter from 4 people in the DZ. So yeah, this build kind of ticks all the boxes for me. It counters status, and I don't know if a lot of you experience the same problem, but certainly on EU servers, status is very, very popular. You will very frequently see bleed, burn, explosive sticky shrapnel traps, all of that stuff, and it's not very pleasant to come against. And this build, without any Has-Pro or without any healing, actually directly counters it in quite a few different ways. This is very off meta. I'm not using InSync or anything like that. I've not got Adrenaline Rush, Intimidate. There's quite a few nice pieces here that when paired together, this just really performs well in the Dark Zone and in conflict. So of course what I will do in the usual fashion is go through the build, and we'll then load into that conflict game solo so I can demonstrate exactly how it works. So let's get started. We are starting with Survivalist for a few different reasons. The main reason being the armor kit actually heals our entire team within 20 meters to 100% of their maximum armor, whatever it is on their build, over a 5-second window. We're going to pair that with a very useful chest talent that really enhances that quite dramatically, and whilst this is less effective in conflict, it still works incredibly well. Where it really shines, however, is the Dark Zone. What it also does is give our teammates 10% additional damage to any enemy that is status affected, and we can apply status effects via our burn grenade and our EMP jammer skill, which is designed to shut down one of the ways that we're shutting down status effects. If we do sit in cover, we get our cooldowns reduced as well, so when you have a bit of respite and enemies aren't pushing you, you can sit in cover and get that 10% skill haste, which really helps. And of course in the Dark Zone you do also get the 10% protection from elites, which again is really useful if you do just get a bunch of NPCs pushing you whilst you're trying to fight some manhunts or you yourself a manhunt. So Survivalist is a must for this build. Now, I'm using the Shield Splinter here because I truly believe that this weapon will be meta if they ever nerf InSync and Lady Death. So, if those talents are brought down, then this is going to be top tier in my opinion, because it hits really hard. It hits very hard for an 850, certainly harder than the Police M4. I don't know if I have one on me, but just to demonstrate. There we go. So you can see on this particular build, which is 4 blue, the Police M4, which is the Pyromaniac, the bullet damage is lower, even though it's the same RPM and mag size. The downside to that is it is missing a underbarrel rail. It has none at all, so you can't have a spotter build with this, or any sort of large underbarrel rail on there, which lets it down a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. We can still work with it. What this does is give us the perfect Optimist talent, and this is obtained from killing all of the hunters in DC. Plenty of good YouTube guides out there to do this if you want to get hold of this weapon. The perfect Optimist gives us 4% additional ammo, 4% additional damage for each 10% ammo that is missing from our magazine. So for every 5 bullets that's missing, we're going to go up for an additional 4% up to that 40% cap, which is awesome. No, it is not powerful as InSync, but we don't need to worry about using a shield to proc it. This is not a shield build, and trust me, this thing absolutely melts. It's one of the harder hitting ARs in the game, and Perfect Optimist is actually top tier. The only reason this isn't used at the moment, or Optimist in general, is because of InSync and Lady Death. They're just a bit too strong, but if they ever do get tuned, this is going to be basically a very future-proof assault rifle to get your hands on. My secondary weapon is simply a second Optimist. This is a Vector in this case, if I ever need to switch and somebody's pushing me. This outputs a lot of damage very quickly. One of the best SMGs in the game outside of Lady Death. Both the 45 ACP and the 9mm are both very good. I don't use my sidearm at all here, so you just stick on here whatever you want. Of course we are using the Incendiary Grenade. You actually get 7 as well, as opposed to the smaller amount that you get with a lot of other specializations. So this is another reason Survivalist really helps this build. So let's have a look at the gear pieces as well, and how we are buffing our team's damage, buffing our own damage, countering status and healing. Yes, this build does all of those. We're starting with the Coyote's Mask, because what this essentially does is give us, in the right ranges, a very substantial buff to crit chance and crit damage. Now, even though this build has 4 blues, I still play this from a bit of range, so I usually sit in the 15 to 25 meter range, which will give me and the rest of my team 10% crit chance and 10% crit damage, which is fantastic. But if somebody does get a bit close, we're then going to have a 25% crit hit damage buff, which applies to me and my entire team. A fantastic piece, and for any AR build that is designed to help your teammates, this is just top tier. It's one of the best exotics in the game. The centerpiece of this build is actually the Everyday Carrier. This came out last season. It's a perfectly efficient Bellstone chest piece. Mine is rolled like the rest of my gear, and how yours should be, to crit chance and crit damage. So the difference here with perfectly efficient versus the standard version is that you gain a 75% chance to not consume the armor kit. But what it also does in PvP, if we change it to that, is it boosts the bonus of the armor kit from the respective specialization by 50%. So this means that we're going to apply 150% of our teammates and our own's max armor over that 5-second window, and that's going to go to everybody within 20 meters. So this is almost like a mini firewall heal, but for your entire team. And this is so powerful in the DZ when you're backed into a corner, you manhunt, and they're throwing tons of status effects down. I'll show you how to cleanse those in a second using the skills, but ultimately you can just pop these over and over and over, and you have four armor kits in the DZ. It's really hard to run out in any length of window, so any length of time. So this is a really powerful chest piece, and very off meta, I appreciate, but you can constantly heal your team to pass their maximum armor. It's a fantastic chest piece, very underrated and definitely underused. What we're doing to flesh out my damage, even though we have 4 blues, is including Contractor's Gloves, which gives us damage to armor. Very, very important on any build. And that pairs really well with the damage to targets out of cover on the weapon, as they both stack with each other and are multiplicative. And then to further enhance the damage to targets out of cover, we also have Fox's Prayer. I know you've seen these time and time again in loads of builds, but they're just a must. You know, for any kind of build that you want to hit hard, particularly if there's a lot of blues, as you need those multiplicative damage bonuses to enhance what your weapon can do. The Bellstone, of course, gives us 1% armor regen, so that helps just to tide us over as well, which is really nice. And then the final blue piece that I have on this build is a Walker Harris & Co. holster, which gives me 5% additional weapon damage. Again, this just helps to flesh out a little bit of extra damage on the build. If you want to put something else here, you absolutely can, but I think just to get that bit of extra damage, this is best in slot. It's a shame this didn't come with crit chance as well, but headshot damage is actually pretty good, and this weapon is a bit of a laser, particularly when we use the booster hive, which I'll come to in a moment. The final piece is a Fenris backpack. This is 10% assault rifle damage, which once again helps to enhance our shield splinter as base damage, rolled to crit chance and crit damage, and we've gone for the vigilance buff here. Now you can use companion with this build as it procs off of your hive, but as I tend to throw this out more for my team than for myself. You know, I don't think that's the best option. But if you're playing sort of manhunt games and you're all grouped up together, you know, then companion is a fantastic second choice here. A really, really good talent though is vigilance, because it's just a flat 25% weapon damage until we ourselves take damage. The skills that we are using, the 2 skills, and this is the part that counters status apart from the ridiculous amount of and constant healing you get from the Everyday Carrier when paired with the Survivalist armor kit, is our booster hive and our jammer. The jammer will cleanse or remove any hives that are thrown out, and I find this constantly in the Dark Zone on EU servers and in conflict. You know, mortar turrets, artillery turrets, sorry, stinger hives, seeker mines, they're just constant. And also shrapnel traps. This breaks every single one regardless of your skill tier, so it's a very powerful skill. What it will also do is temporarily give your opposition a disrupt status effect, which means with the 10% additional damage to status affected enemies for the rest of your team, it's just going to help you to clean up fights. It doesn't apply to yourself, but it does help out your team. The other skill is the Booster Hive, as this immediately cleanses all status effects and then gives us, in my case with the additional stim mod, 22% buff amount, which means that I'm then 22% hazard protected, but also 22% weapon handling buff, which is great for the shield splinter as it really helps us to hit those headshots and absolutely melt people down. So if you ever get into a fight where there are status, you'll essentially drop the booster hive to cleanse that. After you've used your jammer pulse to remove them all, you'll then pop your armor kit to give everybody a ridiculous amount of healing, and you can very aggressively push on the team then, throwing down your grenade to essentially burn them to again give your team the 10% additional damage. There's so much synergy with this build. It works really well, and even though there's no Has-Pro or no skill healing, you can heal crazy amounts and just completely remove status effects as often as you need to. It's really good. Let's have a quick look at the stats as well to show you what I've been able to achieve there. So with all of the crit chance I've been able to get on the build, I ended up opting for 50%, and the reason for that is that I'm going to try and play this at the 15 to 25 meter range for coyotes, which will then buff this to 60%. My crit damage is 119%, just under, but again this is going to go up to 129% with that coyotes buff. And even if we do end up getting the close range buff, 50% is still fine for this weapon. As long as you're over 50%, it just means that half your bullets are going to be crits, and then of course you'll have the 25% on there for the 0 to 15 coyotes buff. Headshot damage is quite respectable at 83.2%, and we have a nice amount of damage to armor here as well through the contractors. My armor stats as well, just to quickly show you those, we're sat at 1.45 million armor because we've got 4 blues and 2 reds on the build, which is fantastic, and we do have a tiny amount of armor regen from the Bellstone. You could potentially swap out the Fox's Prayer for the Murakami named knees, which I actually originally did, but I ended up just going for the extra damage in the end, as we have the 4 blues and we've got the crazy amount of healing from Perfectly Efficient, so that was fine for me. So that is the build there. What I'm now going to do is load into a conflict game so that I can demonstrate how this all works. And as I said before, if you'd like to see some DZ footage as well, please let me know and I'll release a separate video just so you can see how this build performs in a manhunt that we did. We were able to hit quite some. I think one was like over 80 and one was over 50. We got some pretty big numbers from this.
Before you run out of reinforcements.
Right, so we've loaded into Wharf. Looks like we have a couple of status guys on the other team. One person was running a full yellow status build with a fire sticky bomb, which is really going to hurt, and the other guy was running a shrapnel trap. So hopefully this build will perform well against them. Now obviously we have less grenades and less armor kits in conflict, so this build performs much better in the DZ, but it's still pretty solid just here as well. I'm going to pop that straight away. Now taking a little bit of damage, I'm just going to stun next to these guys, give them an armor kit. If you watch above their heads, you'll see, there we go, now they're all getting 150% of their armor. So we can actually push quite aggressively here. Cleanse this real quick, pop another armor kit, you see we're still on 2. Oh, look at the melt. Try and get a bit closer so I can give this guy the boost. There it is. Oh, the fire grenade actually killed him. Nice. And that's essentially how it works. You see we're still on 2 armor kits, even though we popped 2 there. Got to be careful of our 6 here. And that's pretty much all you do. You don't want to be right in the front lines, even though we do have 4 blues. I want to try and res this guy. So what I'm going to do here is just pop another armor kit next to these dudes. There we go, now they're all being healed as well. Oh, if my Axu was better, this would be easy. And what I like to do is just take a little bit of damage. Ah, I couldn't get my guy back up in time, that's a shame. And this is why the 1% armor regen is good, because it just keeps you topped off a little bit, and if you do take a little bit of damage, you've just got time to get off the armor kit and cover. Oh, this is risky. Damage boost, nice. It looks like these guys are sitting back. Which makes sense, really. We do have a damage boost. That'd be pretty crazy to push here. Pull back to this guy. Throw this down on him. Straight back up again. Which didn't work for some reason, only gave me the boost, that's weird. So now that these guys are both a little bit low... Oh, that is too much damage. I'm actually going to pull back to my team here, because I think there was 2 dudes there. So again, this is the problem you find in a lot of conflict of DZ games. People do, in my opinion, rely way too much on status effects, which you can't blame them. It's not their fault. It's Massive's fault for making them as powerful as they are. So looks like we've got 2 dudes over here. Not today, buddy. Pop this now, see if it uses an armor kit. Still on 2.
Send a specialization supply drop your way.
It just gives you guys that sort of confidence to push.
Rogue explosive seeker mine detected.
Today, buddy. Come on, come this way, guy, come this way. Oh, that guy is overstayed his welcome way too much.
You're too strong for them.
Need to take a bit of damage here. Alright, let's push back to these, see if we can give him a cheeky heal. There it is. Oh, now we've gone down to 1. So we've used 3 so far, possibly 4, but we've only gone down to 1. Again, going to do the same thing again. Should be able to catch both of them here. Okay, now we've used them all. So admittedly, at this point in conflict, you know, you are going to be limited. But yeah, like I said, in the DZ, when you've got 4, I still would have had 2 by this point.
Everybody's pulling out. The fight goes on. You're
Look how many
halfway
status
through the
effects
fight.
these guys are
Rogues
using.
run out of
Ugh.
reinforcements. You can win this.
An agent needs assistance.
Today, buddy. Oh, he's going in. I like your style, brother. Guess that guy just gave up. Can't really blame him for it. Oh, this weapon hits so hard. I was red shielded there.
Rogue hive detected.
And there it is. So it definitely is a really effective counter to status.
Victory is
I
yours.
love the fact that you can heal your team constantly. As I say, less so in conflict, but definitely a lot more in the dark zone. You can pick up more armor kits. You start with 4. You have 7 fire grenades. So you just keep throwing those incendiaries down chokes and so on. Give your team the 10% additional weapon damage. Heal them constantly. Cleanse their status with the booster, and shut down all of the seekers and hives and traps and so on with your jammer. So it's definitely a very off-meta build. We're not using in sync or a shield or anything like that, but you know, and on top of all of that, we're buffing our team's damage as well with the coyotes. So yeah, I really like it. I think this build performs incredibly well. There are definitely better weapons and builds out there in terms of just raw damage and survivability, but if you have one person on this build with your team, it's phenomenal. Let's have a look at what we did. So we finished on 8 kills. We were the only person in the lobby not to die. We had the highest damage in the lobby. With the highest kills and the highest assists, so I think that kind of highlights the strength of the build there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear if any of you guys do run something similar, and until then, I will see you all in the next video. Peace.